YouTube, the San Antonio Spurs are back and ready to compete in 2025 for the NBA season coming up. And in this video, I actually want to explain a hot take of mine that I think the San Antonio Spurs will shock the NBA in 2025. And there's been some discussion about whether or not the Spurs will go all in to compete next season or tank another season, to maybe try to win Cooper Flag sweepstakes in the 2025 NBA draft lottery. The reason I think the San Antonio Spurs will compete, just to get this topic out of the way, is because of their veteran signings, right? And we'll get to all the free agent stuff and off-season stuff that they did, how much they improved the roster. I actually think they had one of the best S-tier off-seasons of anybody in the 2024 NBA off-season. But in this video, I'm going to be doing a recap of everything the San Antonio Spurs have done in the off-season. So every move they've made, the draft, free agency, trades, stuff like that. We're going to do a deep dive on their roster, right? Every notable player that I think is worth mentioning that I'm going to talk about in this video. And we're going to talk about, maybe what are some of the expectations that, San Antonio Spurs fans can expect for this team in 2025, as far as how good they could possibly be. What's their ceiling in the upcoming season? All that and more in this San Antonio Spurs deep dive video. Let's talk about why the Spurs are going to be so dominant in 2025. Let's get into it, folks. So as I mentioned, first thing we're going to do in this video is recap every move the San Antonio Spurs have made this offseason, and let's do that starting now. So let's start with the additions and the re-signing. So for the re-signings, you extend Charles Bassey, who is a rotation center, to a one-year deal. I think this is a good re-signing. Charles Bassey actually ended up playing for my Sixers first and then going to the Spurs. I actually think Charles Bassey has a bright future ahead of him as far as a rotation center in this league. He's a good hustle and effort guy who can get on the glass and, really disrupt some things in the paint with his effort and energy off the bench. This is a good re-signing for San Antonio for some center depth. You also re-sign Sandro Mamakulashvili. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I could be totally butchering that. I apologize. I've seen him play before. I know he has a brother in the NBA as well. If I mispronounced it, let me know the pronunciation down in the comments. I'm always looking to learn things, but as far as I can tell, the Spurs really like this guy, and when the Spurs like a prospect, I like them too because they know what they're doing. So good re-signing there as well. As far as the additions, you actually acquire two players that are veterans that can help this team win right now and provide some veteran leadership and great NBA experience. And these guys are both extremely valuable still in their, later stages of their career. And those two players being Harrison Barnes and point guard Chris Paul, right? So let's talk about Harrison Barnes first. You get him in a trade with the Kings, and this was in as a part of the DeMar DeRozan trade. People were saying the Spurs could have gotten DeMar DeRozan. They end up getting Harrison Barnes and only giving up, I believe, only a 2031 unprotected pick swap in the deal. So you basically get Harrison Barnes, who is a good scorer and might even fit into the starting lineup. This guy is, again, a bucket from the mid-range, from the three-point area. You can use him a lot of ways offensively. He's got good size as well. Veteran leadership for guys like Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell to learn from. What an absolute W you make out in this trade with a guy that can help you compete right now. You also sign Chris Paul and win the Chris Paul sweepstakes to a one-year deal. I think it was worth $11 million, excuse me. And Chris Paul, we all know that the biggest issue with the Spurs last season was their point guard play. And not only do you have Tre Jones coming off the bench now, you get Chris Paul, maybe the best basketball IQ guy on the free agent market this season, and only get him for $11 million. This is invaluable leadership and a veteran presence that he can bring to the team, and also still provide a solid playmaker and an all-time great one at that, if he can stay healthy and provide similar, play to what he did last season with the Warriors. This is a guy that fit in seamlessly. He won't get in the way. He won't take too many shots. He will play whatever role I would assume Coach Popovich gives him, and probably be the best playmaker you could have got on the market, as I mentioned. So this is an absolute W deal for the San Antonio Spurs. Getting two veteran presences that have had a lot of success in the NBA can help guys like Victor Wembanyama, Keldon Johnson, and Devin Vassell learn from their experience and, grow as players individually and provide solid value on the court next season. This is a great offseason for the Spurs. The only departure you have is Devontae Graham, who basically was a salary dump, right? And you end up giving a second-round pick to Charlotte to take him. So this is a good move for the Spurs as well, getting rid of that salary that you weren't going to play him anyway. So as far as the draft, because we got to talk about the draft, you end up drafting point guard out of UConn's Stephon Castle. This is one of the best picks in the draft. Stephon Castle is going to be one of the highest ceiling players of this draft from the point guard position. He is a massive point guard. If you're going to play him there, he's 6'6", 210 pounds, giant frame to him. He's got good width to him as well for a point guard. He's one of the biggest point guards in the league as it is already. You could even play him at the forward, at the 3. the 2 or the 1, doesn't really matter. He is someone that I think has a lot of playmaking potential, and you know, if he can up his 3-point shooting and his just, I guess, floor spacing value, you know, this is maybe the best pick in the draft considering where you got him at number 4 overall. That's not all, folks. That's not the best part of his game. He is a lockdown defender, the likes of which we rarely see in the NBA from a guard. He has the total package defensively. He is an absolute dog mentality player as well. He is one of the most fierce competitive defenders I've seen in a long time, and he is going to transition instantly. This is an all-NBA defensive caliber guard you're going to see for years and years to come in the NBA. This is your point guard of the future. It's absolutely terrifying to think about that you might have 2 of the most generational defenders on the same floor at once going forward, with Victor Wembanyama and Stephon Castle. Castle being the perimeter guy, Victor Wembanyama being the, I guess, everywhere guy, but mostly on the interior. This is terrifying for the NBA, and particularly teams in the Western Conference. Look out. Good luck scoring on the Spurs this season, folks. You also end up selecting Harrison Ingram, the forward from North Carolina, at 48th overall in the 2nd round. This was a guy that was projected to go highly in the 2nd round, I believe, so this is an absolute steal for San Antonio as well, adding to that forward depth. Another guard was taken by the Indiana Pacers and traded to the Spurs, and that is Juan Nunez from Spain. This is a 6'4", 190 guard who I believe has a lot of potential, and the Spurs getting him that, you know, late in the draft is a good move as well. I believe Juan Nunez is a pretty good playmaker, so this could make another, you know, playmaking addition for the Spurs. You take a lot of shots on some guys with, you know, high upside, and I just think that's a great move. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much it as far as the offseason trades in the draft. Now let's do a deep dive on San Antonio's roster, and man, they have so many great young players. It's not even funny. We're going to go through all of them in this video, starting with the, you know, potential. I don't know, man. I don't want to jinx anything, and I don't want to say anything out of turn here, but, you know, Victor Wembanyama could end up being one of the greatest players of all time. Again, this is early in his career. It's very unfair to put that expectation on him, but I think it is deserved in this case. He has all of the potential in the world to be a top 5 player ever. He has all of the potential in the world to be a top 5 NBA player currently, you know, just within a couple of years. I mean, you know, if he comes out stronger than he was last year, this is already a top 10 player in the league. I've seen reports that, you know, he stands next to Rudy Gobert, and basically he measured at the Olympics 7'6" for Team France, which is absolutely mind-blowing. The wingspan to go along with that, and every single ability you could possibly want in a player, he has it. He is a great kid. He is a fast learner, and he is very mature for his age, which is a great combo to go with all that talent. And not to mention, he's being coached by, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time in Gregg Popovich. What better place for him to be and grow as a player than from a guy who developed the likes of David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, another French player, and Manu Ginobili. Best situation, best coach, best talent you could ever hope in any player or prospect, right? This is the greatest prospect maybe we've ever seen other than LeBron James. Similar to that type of talent, Victor will no doubt take a step up next season. In fact, I think he will take a massive step up, and this is an all-NBA caliber player next season. He's probably going to make an all-NBA caliber team. He could even win DPOY. I expect him to be an all-star. All of those things I expect in 2025 for Victor Wembanyama. Again, there are questions about whether or not the Spurs want to totally unleash him to the world next season, or, you know, kind of keep him back a little bit like they did last year, and, you know, in hopes to tank a little bit more and get another future star potentially. We could see a situation like that. I doubt it. I think they're not going to go full send next season on winning, but I also think they're not going to go full send on tanking either. I think they'll be somewhere in the middle and probably win somewhere close to, you know, 25 plus or 35, you know, 30 games or something like that. But if they were to go full send, which they could do that and get some winning experience under Victor's belt, this is probably, we'll talk about how many wins they could get, but I think it's over 40 wins, to be honest with you. You know, Wemby is obviously the key to all of that, and he has the ability to take them as high as the front office and the organization wants to go next season. We'll just have to see what that looks like. But Victor only being 20 years old, winning the Rookie of the Year last season, obviously deservingly so, one of the best rookie seasons I've ever seen. I don't have to explain Victor's talent or potential to you guys anymore. I think that says it all. Your second best player is probably Devin Vassell, and Devin Vassell is one of the, you know, best young two guards or wings in the entire league as far as scoring. He really impressed me last season. This is a player I've liked for quite a while, but he's only 23 years old out of Florida State, and last year really upped his efficiency a big amount. I mean, he averaged almost 20 points a game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He looks like he's getting a ton better for a passer. You know, 4 assists on 1.6 turnovers as a shooting guard is definitely solid, and I mentioned the scoring is much better and more efficient. Great shooter as well. He averaged 20 points a game on 47% from the field, 37 from 3 on 6.6 attempts, and 80% from the line. This is maybe your secondary scorer on this team, no question about it. Secondary scorer of the future. You got to keep Devin Vassell around for long term. He's part of that big core that you're building in San Antonio. We could be looking at an offensive star start here, folks. Keldon Johnson is an interesting player to me because he has maybe had the biggest expectations and potential of all these, young players other than Victor throughout the last couple of years. And, last season kind of taking a step back in a more of a different kind of passive role than he has been. Keldon Johnson is a talented small forward, power forward, primarily offensively. I mean, there are defensive limitations to him as well, but this is a really talented player that I think is definitely another guy that's going to have to be part of that core, no question about it. And I'd be really interested to see how Harrison Barnes can help him develop as a scorer a little bit more efficient, because Harrison Barnes is kind of a good comparison to Keldon Johnson. They kind of are similar players, so it'll be interesting to see what his role is next season. Definitely have to see that. We talked about the two veterans, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul. They're going to make a massive impact on this team from day one. Not only the veteran leadership, the winning experience they both have in the NBA, the individual success they've both had. They both played in great systems before. These are two W players you've acquired here, and I think they will help on the court more than people think originally, because a lot of people think, Chris Paul washed, Harrison Barnes not anything special at this point in his career. These guys are old. They're mostly there for veteran leadership. I disagree. I think they're both still pretty good players, and Chris Paul's value is immeasurable to Victor Wembanyama as a playmaker. So it is going to be so amazing for Gregg Popovich to have that type of playmaker on his team. He probably hasn't had one in so long. He's got to be thrilled with both of these players coming in, helping him do his job a little bit better, so he doesn't have to teach every single little thing. These guys can help him out in that regard. We already talked about Stephon Castle, so I won't take too much time on him, but just the defensive versatility and competitiveness is going to be key for them. I think his three-point shooting could make or break his offensive career. He's definitely got to figure out a way to shoot a consistent three ball. Doesn't even have to be off the dribble. Just, he has to be able to space the floor on some level to stay on the floor as much as they want to put him on the floor. So that'll be interesting to note. I think in the summer league, he struggled a little bit so far, but he has shown every other thing we expected of him and then some. So, I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue as people think, but it is something to, keep note of and definitely think about if you're a Spurs fan. Another few members of this core that I really like, starting with Jeremy Sochan. Sochan was played as basically a point forward last season, didn't really work out too well, but I think just him having that experience last season in a season where you're not expecting wins is big for him. Like, this is a guy now that has playmaking experience to that level and, could inform his play and basically assist his play moving forward. No pun intended with the assist, but he's not going to be handling the ball that much next season or seasons moving forward. But him having the experience and learning a bunch of things last season as a playmaker is going to be huge for his career moving forward in more limited, playmaking role. But now that we know that he can do it from time to time is big for him as a, utility piece offensively. Defensively, he's pretty good, and I think just adds a good, grounded kind of game to this team, and you can do a lot of things. As I mentioned, he is a utility guy that I really like on both ends of the floor. Jeremy Sochan, definitely one of the most intriguing players and best players of this young core moving forward. Tre Jones, we talked about another point guard that'd be interesting to see what his role is. This is a good playmaker, probably your best playmaker other than Chris Paul, and it'll be interesting to see what the point guard minutes look like. Will they play Stephon Castle at the wing, or will they, really be having him take on lead playmaking duties throughout the season? Because you have Chris Paul and Tre Jones, who I think Chris Paul works a little bit better off the ball than Tre Jones would, but these are two guys that I think have to have the ball in their hands mostly to get the best value out of them, right? So, it'll be interesting to see. I don't think Tre Jones is necessarily a great three-point shooter, so I would definitely wonder about his usage off ball and whether that'll be something he could do, I guess, viably, right? So, it'd be interesting to see. I think Castle could play a lot of things, right? He could be a kind of an off-ball forward who does a lot of dirty work, sets a lot of good screens and is used as a downhill transition player. I think in more of the half-court setting, it'll be interesting to see how they use Stephon Castle without the ball in his hands. That's something I'm really looking forward to seeing. But I think Tre Jones, again, this is, we're going to have to see what kind of minutes all these guys get at the point guard. But Tre Jones is a great playmaker, and he can score a little bit too. He's a reliable playmaker, and I think that's definitely something worth noting. Malachi Branham had a good season last year. This is an underrated player for the Spurs, a guy to watch. He is a scoring two guard, in my opinion. He can do a little bit of playmaking as well. I don't think that's his strongest thing, but he is a good bench scorer. I think this is a guy you could bring off the bench, expect to get some buckets for you. Might not be the most efficient scorer at this point, but if he can improve his three-point shooting a little bit, he's already a good free throw shooter. This is a guy to watch moving forward as a bench scorer. I think has definitely a good role on the team next season. We talked about Charles Bassey from that front court, another solid rotation front court guy. Julian Champagnie is a good shooter and one of the best shooters on the Spurs last season, particularly from the three-point area. Another guy that spent some time with my Sixers, but this is a guy that has had a lot of success on the Spurs, so I'd expect him to get some minutes as well, from that small forward position. So another guy to watch. And not even to mention Zach Collins, who is probably the best veteran you've had on this team for a while. And now that you bring in Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes, this is just another veteran you can add to the mix. Zach Collins is a versatile center who can both rebound, play defense on the interior, score a little bit as well, and pass. He's a good playmaking center. This is the type of center Popovich likes to put in. This is probably your backup center. Could even play power forward. I think he could play either one. Mostly power forward, probably you're going to see him as next season. You know, is Victor going to be the starting center next season? That's, you know, who do you put alongside Victor? I think Zach Collins, so basically his shooting ability could be a little bit valuable. You know, he's not exactly the best three-point shooter, but for a center, he's pretty great. So I think, you know, that is something you could see, a center that can shoot and play a little bit inside, kind of a versatile type of big man like Zach Collins, who could just do a lot of great things on both ends of the floor. This is a guy you want to keep around for that core in the front court. And that's kind of the team right there. That's all, you know, there's more players that those are the most notable in my opinion. And as far as the expectation, like I said, it's going to depend on how Coach Popovich and the staff want to run things. Do they want to tank another year or do they want a full send? I think it'll be somewhere in the middle, right? I would expect this team to win somewhere close to 30 games, maybe a little bit more improved. Even if they did full send, I wouldn't expect them to be a playoff team, but this would definitely be a play-in team, in my opinion, if they were to full send on winning. I honestly hope they don't try to go for another top draft pick next season. I don't think the Spurs fans want that, and I don't want that either as an NBA fan. I think the Spurs need to try to win a little bit more than they have been, because you want to, I guess, instill some trust and a lot more life and electricity back into your city and fan base. And I think, you know, just winning a little bit more, maybe 30, 35 games could be a big way to do that. You know, I get that this is a good draft coming up here in 2025, and you could have a chance to win the Cooper Flag sweepstakes if you play it right. But listen, this team, you know, you could win enough games to make a play-in tournament with this team anyway. So not only that, but you'll have a couple expiring contracts next season. You'll be able to add free agents. You have a ton of future draft picks you can play with. I just think this team is set up already to be great, you know, in the future. And I don't think, you know, necessarily tanking this year really changes that. You know, let's say you do land a Cooper Flag or another star in next year's draft. That's great, right? But let's say, you know, Stephon Castle, we know Victor Wembanyama is going to be a max player. Let's say a lot of those guys end up max players. Devin Vassell as well could be one of those guys. With the new CBA, you just can't pay all those guys. So I think with the expiring contracts, Chris Paul being one of them, you know, there's a ton of money on the books seasons down the road. You have a ton of future draft picks already. I just don't know that this is the season you want to tank again and try to win a Cooper Flag sweepstakes. I think you've, you know, kind of done that already, and you could be mediocre for a couple seasons and still have a ton of future assets to play with down the road and get a little bit, you know, more value out of your young players that could be developing, and they'll be a year better next season. So I don't think you try to hold these players back anymore. I think you let them go and see what happens, right? I don't expect this team to be a 50-win team or a 49-win team, or, you know, a play-in tournament is realistic for this team. They are that good. They have the veteran leadership. They have the veteran players that have been there before, and they have some of the best young talent in the NBA. They have the best coach, one of the best coaches of all time, if not the best. They have, you know, a great system and a staff to be able to make this work. They have a great fan base. So if you're a Spurs fan, let me know down in the comment section how excited you are to see your team next season maybe win a little bit more games. Do you think they're going to tank again to try to win Cooper Flag? What do you want? Do you want them to tank, or do you want them to go and try to win games? I would imagine as a Spurs fan, you'd probably be like, just please try to win games. I'm tired of this. I felt the same way during the process era for my Sixers. It was the same thing. I was just over it by year 3. You know, I'm like, I'm done with it. We already have our guy. Can we just try to win? Hopefully they handle this well. You know, I think they already are. I mean, they seem to be ahead of things and on top of things. But like I always say in these deep dive videos, for the Spurs fans listening to me right now, if there are little things that I missed in this video or that maybe you would like to correct me on, because I'm sure there are some of them, you know, because as a Spurs fan, you would know way more than me about the little things than I would about your team. You know, I'm just an outsider looking in. I don't have, you know, every little detail down to a science like you. I'm sure you guys have. I know for my Sixers, all of the comings and goings that happen every day, I'm aware of. And I could probably tell you this instant what's going on with the Sixers, what's the narrative and stuff like that. If I'm missing something, please let me know. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video know a lot more than I do about your team, obviously. So there's going to be those things. Definitely let me know down in the comments. But as far as the video, do you agree with my takes on the Spurs? Do you think they could be a play-in team and shock the NBA next season? Or do you think I'm maybe blowing that out of proportion? I don't know. I'd love to get the feedback from Spurs fans. Everyone else around the league, doesn't matter what kind of fan you are. If you know more about this than me, let me know down in the comments. I'm wrong all the time. And I'm wrong every day. We upload every day on the channel. And, you know, I get things wrong. I'm human. So I'm not, you know, too proud to admit that for sure. You know, it's how I get better. It's how I learn and become a better creator, right? So make sure you guys drop a like on the video, Spurs fan or not, if you did enjoy it. All support and feedback is appreciated with this channel. We're trying to grow it into something special. We're small right now, but we're trying to get to the top, you know? And you guys have been so supportive. You guys have supported the channel. Thank you guys so much. Every view, every comment, every like, every subscribe, subscription really adds up and means the world to me, because I put a ton of time into these videos, man, to tell you the truth. And you know, it is so rewarding when you guys give feedback. So subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. As I mentioned before, we're on the road to 13K and we're trying to grow this community, Dehave Nation, into something special. And you know, your subscription could help us do that. So it would really mean the world to me. And if you guys don't want to miss more content like this, make sure you guys do subscribe, because what I can offer you and what you could get out of it is great content every day moving forward. It might not be great content every day, but I'm certainly going to try my best every day. And we upload content just like this every day on the channel. So if you want to see more deep dives on different teams around the NBA, we've already done a few. Make sure you guys check those out. I'm hoping to, you know, cover every team by the time the NBA offseason is over, as far as a deep dive video. So maybe we'll get there. I don't know. But offseason stuff, tier lists, rankings, fun NBA stuff every day. And that's what you're going to get if you subscribe. So Spurs fan, let me know down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the video if you guys haven't already. Spurs are going to shock the NBA in 2025. Victor Wembanyama is going to be an all-NBA player. And hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will catch you guys in the next one, in the next video tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Spurs fans, get excited, because you should be. Catch you guys in the next one. This is your boy D-Haven as always. Peace.